All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the June 6th meeting of the Gateway API Gamma Initiative. Um, for folks who don't know, we have an open agenda, so please feel free to add any topics you'd like to discuss to the meeting notes. And also, please add your name to the list of attendees so we can track who's going to these meetings as we try to make sure that we're working at time zones that are able to accommodate folks across a range of locales. All right. With that, we can go into a brief recap of last week to start out. I was not able to attend last week. I watched the last 8 minutes of the recording. It looks like the first half of last week's meeting didn't quite make it into the YouTube playlist yet. I don't know if there's anything to follow up on there, or if it's just going to be missing. Oh, you have it locally. Okay, cool. So hopefully we can get that up at some point. But yeah, it looked like kind of like the big highlight and takeaway and celebration is that our Gamma Ready for Implementers milestone closed. And we are on track for having Gamma officially becoming part of Gateway API in the upcoming 0.80 release, which I am super excited about. It's I feel I wish I could have made the meeting last week where this was like actually announced, but yeah, it's exciting and it's really good to see this work kind of coming to fruition. So yeah, thank you everybody who has put in the work to make this happen. There was one issue. Oh, sorry, I'm not sharing my screen. All right. There is one issue that had been in the milestone that has been removed. So it's, oh, that's the wrong one. That's the real milestone. There we go. So this issue on how gateways should or should not interact with gamma routing configuration is still a work in progress. I've been working on a draft with Flynn, but we've determined that this should not block gamma being part of the spec because there's a lot of complexity to this, and it's something that will probably require some implementation experimentation to figure out what kind of makes sense and is implementable for everybody. So this is out of the milestone, but we're going to continue to work on it. And yeah, with that, Rob, I don't know if there's anything you want to highlight from the upcoming 0.80 milestone that's relevant to Gamma, but this is going to be the place for adding anything that we want to do for Gamma before the 0.80 release or as part of it. So there's one issue on website updates that I think would be great to get in there.
Yeah, thanks. I think that 0.80 is really the release that we want to leave for Gamma. And so in that case, I think we'll rely heavily on when y'all say it's ready to go. There's a couple experimental gaps coming down the pipeline that may get included, but there aren't many release blockers here that are not Gamma related. Or I don't even know if we have any Gamma related ones other than documentation.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, is there any that would be worth calling out now as like needs help or needs attention before release for Gamma?
I can't think of one. I added one later in the agenda that I'd love to see move through. Like there are a couple open PRs related to Gamma. I'm not sure how critical they are, but I'd love to just get them resolved. Yeah, that's all I can think of.
Cool. Yeah, and I just caught from the recording last week the target for this is about 4 to 5 weeks from now, or maybe it's 3 to 5 weeks from now, for entering into SIG network API review. So hopefully everything should be merged and basically getting to a point where we're ready for folks to give it the green light. All right. What else? Yeah, Keith or Rob, do you want to recap any of this conversation from last week about like experimental versus implementable?
Yeah, there was a good point brought up by Shane last week around kind of the timing of Gamma was experimental a little while ago, and now we're moving quickly to implementable. And just wanting to make sure that that timing makes the most sense. We went back and forth on some of the semantics of experimental and implementable. I think Rob made kind of the seminal point that really Gamma was implementable probably a while ago. And evidenced by the
And
fact
has been implemented by a few folks already.
exactly. Right, like before the PR merged, it was implemented by Istio, of course, ran ahead and did it really early, but then Linkerd followed relatively soon. I think it was either really early this year or late last year, with the Gamma compliant kind of implementation. So we've really been incubating for a while, and have been implementable for a good bit. We just kind of made it official late. And so I talked to Shane after the meeting last week, and he said like he doesn't have any kind of remaining hesitations, and we can go ahead and move it to to implementable. But he just wanted to make sure we thought about it, and I agree. It's good to have the conversation, but I think I agree with Shane that this movement makes sense even with the quick turnaround.
Cool. Yeah, I think additionally Kuma is also making good progress on implementing Gamma already. So that's also been encouraging to see that we have a diversity of implementations that are starting to explore this. And it's still on the roadmap for console. We haven't gotten into it exactly yet, but hopefully we'll be able to start that in the near future now that we've got a lot of the prerequisite work out of the way for us. So. All right. Do you want to talk about All-State policy, Keith? I guess that covers kind of the recap of last week, and we can move on to topics for this week.
Yeah. So looking at where we've got for where we're at with Gamma, it feels like we've got at least an implementable set of routing semantics defined, which is great. For me, looking at mesh use cases, the biggest gap currently is something standard for authorization policy. We have talked about this a couple of times, and we talked about, we'll get a little bit about how they're going about doing it. But one of the reasons why this is exciting to me now, not just because we don't, not just because we kind of closed the chapter for now on routing, but we have a lot of work happening with kind of the upstream or the ingress gateway API side with policy attachment, direct policy and things like that. I think we've gotten, I even saw some, I couldn't catch the gateway API meeting yesterday, but I think I saw some information on there around essential tooling that's being created, different approaches being done. And I think it would be really great, for us who want to see kind of a standard LZ policy mechanism to kind of stack hands on that, and many hands light work and all that to contribute to what's happening for the tooling, and then use that to kind of try to brainstorm a standard, big air quotes there, but standard policy resource, or Auth-Z policy resource, in as much as it's possible to do so across different data plane implementations. So that's where my brain is, but wanted to kind of see what other people thought about that, or if they're kind of content with using implementation specific Auth-Z policy for now and doing something else. But that's what came up to my mind. What does everybody else think about like our do next?
If I can suggest one thing, is to do the same thing we did with session, which is to survey the existing standard before inventing a new one, and probably have a section there about scalability and performance, because that's one place where we screwed up pretty badly with Istio. So it's probably better to start with this, and definitely it's probably the most important thing to standardize, because it would be really bad for each implementation to have its own OZ. But let's not rush because we did that before and didn't turn out well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that seems like a great plan. I definitely contribute on behalf of like what Consul's implementation of OSCE looks like with our intentions currently. And yeah, making sure that this is designed in a way that is like implementable and performant across all specifications. It sounds like the good kind of thing of like we could share lessons learned and make sure that we have support like an intersecting set of features. Like I know some meshes, but not others might be able to do things like L7 OSCE policies. So figuring out how to or not work those things in like potentially optional or like extended performance type way. So yeah, other thoughts?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, just to state the obvious, this feels completely in scope for Gateway API. I'd love to see this, moving forward. So if anyone has the time or energy to start a gap, like, yes, please. And I agree with what Costin said, starting with a survey of the state of the world is, probably the best starting point for this gap especially, but any gap.
Okay, yeah, I'll go out on a limb and take driving that. I started this conversation back in October, but obviously other things popped up between then and now. So I'm happy to pick this back up and try to drive some consensus across different implementations here. Yeah,
That sounds great.
I'll do some work and hopefully maybe have something next meeting to probably start some conversation on. No promises though. Good, Costin.
I have a question. We had some discussions before about some sort of middle ground between a standard across all implementation and a standard across a couple of implementations. Like all Envoy-based implementations could use something like external OZ or which is not going to be a core API probably forever because it's Envoy specific and it's externally making. But probably there are quite a few Envoy-based implementations that could reuse it. Do we have any way to some repository, some common place where we can store it so it's not under Istio.io under kind of each implementation defining its own, it's almost identical, or do we keep going with vendor or standard only as two tracks but nothing in between?
No, I've been wanting to see this happen for a while. I talked with some people in Envoy Gateway team, and there was some interest at a previous KubeCon in Envoy branded policies living, I think, outside of the Envoy Gateway branding, but in an Envoy repo somewhere. And I think that really would fit well here. We are seeing one that a large portion of Gateway API implementations are Envoy based, maybe even a larger portion of Gamma implementations. I know it's not 100%, but a large portion are. So certainly if we can standardize around that and provide, more configurability than we would in a truly fully portable option, I think Envoy branded something would be really helpful. So yeah, I'd love to follow up. I think the people that are working on Envoy Gateway probably are best in just because they have more access within Envoy organization, and are also obviously very involved in Gateway. But we can, whoever we need to talk to, I'd be happy to help move that forward.
Wouldn't it be better to be under Kubernetes.io? I mean, in the Gateway and Gamma organization, Git repository, so it's involves all the vendors because they also kind of are one specific implementation, and I'm not sure if, and it's not only Envoy only. I mean, there are probably other implementations that are shared across different vendors, and so kind of have a Kubernetes.io organization a middle ground between each vendor on its own versus some common APIs, but that are not still. I don't know. I don't mind either way, but I feel much better if it was under Kubernetes.io, to be honest.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't have a strong feeling. I'd want someone, some leadership, organization, whatever, from Envoy side to just be on board with the direction we're going. If we're using Envoy in our naming, but otherwise, yeah, I agree with it. It could be Kubernetes owned as well.
Yeah, one thing I want to make sure that that we discuss is that I don't know. I think it's probably best to kind of take a page out of Gateway API's book here and not necessarily assume that we're going to have to break across implementations. It may be likely, like in the external auth case, that probably is a fairly likely thing that you're going to have to, or you might have to, we're definitely going to have to discuss. But if we can find, a set of standards that at least, let's say Linkerd proxy and Envoy proxy can come to some kind of consensus on, bring in Cilium in their model and see if they can have some, drive some consensus there. And if we can say this is the best for the industry, I think everybody, users being kind of the foremost persona on my mind, I think everybody benefits from that, because then there's this unification saying this is the best way to go about solving this problem, at least based on what we know today. So I think Envoy Gateway is still a good place to start, just because they've been thinking about this for a while. But I don't necessarily want to exclude other data plane implementations from those initial conversations.
John, and then I'll follow up on that.
Yeah, and one concern we should keep in mind is that Envoy is not a human API, and it's terrible to use as a human. So, it's tough because, if we make our own opinionated API, then you don't have the same opinions than everyone else. But at the same time, I really, really don't want users to be using Envoy APIs directly. And I don't think users want that either. So,
Yeah, I completely agree. Envoy API does not feel like it was made to be user facing and have, a really friendly UX. I think the main goal of anything like this, if we were to move forward, would just be to expose features that are only configurable with Envoy and don't have the same level of portability across other products. But yeah, I think I'm agreeing with what's already been said here.
Yeah, I think I slightly disagree with this statement. I agree that the APIs are horrible, but taking an API from Envoy that is bad and attempting to just change the names to make it a bit more, lipstick on the pig style, I don't think it helps too much either. So I would rather take the original and not have to deal with, oh, this name is translated into this other name because it doesn't sound good. Or in practice, if you look at our external OZ represented mesh config, it's almost the same thing that Envoy has. So I wouldn't say ours is better in any way. But yeah, I half agree, half disagree. But
I actually agree with what you're saying. But at the same time, something like HTTP route is a good example, right? That's, I think, a better API than Envoy's route for users.
Oh yeah, no, it's case by case, John. I didn't say take all the Envoy APIs. Take
no,
external
I totally
and
agree. Like superficial changes are not good, and big changes are hard. So it's a very tricky problem, but something we should keep in mind.
Yeah, definitely not wholesale take all the APIs from Envoy, but take specific things that are, cannot be abstracted, are specific to Envoy. Like external OZ is a perfect example, in my opinion, and external proc and a few others. Okay, I think we're on the same page after all.
Cool. Yeah, I just wanted to plus one to Keith's point of I think we should start approaching this from let's see if we can do this in an implementation and proxy abstract way, because as we all know, I think every mesh implements something quite similar to this. So hopefully we can design an abstraction that is going to make sense and be able to just through defining some fields as extending performance, if you want that as an out for XDOC and Envoy or something like that, might be a way to approach this. But yeah, or some of the other details. But yeah, this is something where I think the like Envoy specific policies that are generic across Envoy based meshes makes a lot of sense for the long tail of things that are like timeouts and retries, but like the long tail of things that are not as clean to put into the like totally generic policy, but for something that all meshes implement a version of, I think like, yeah, like what he's saying, like, let's start from the supposition of like, this is something we should try to design for. And then the like proxy based thing would be kind of like, if there are some things that can't fit into that model, then we can explore that. So yeah, sounds like we're all on the same page here. Cool. That sounds good. Thanks, Keith, for volunteering to take the lead on that. We'll definitely look forward to reading any proposals that come out of that. Rob, you had one topic here on issue you wanted to raise.
Yeah, I think this has just kind of gotten lost, and it seems like great to get it resolved. So I don't know. This is more just making sure we don't lose track of it. I can't remember what is really blocking here. I don't know if John, you remember any, where this is. Does it just need more review?
I think it just needs decision, really.
Okay.
Like there was some discussion
Okay.
that maybe we also make port required as part of it. And we just never, the idea was pitched, we just never really discussed whether we should do it or not, I think.
I think port required is probably a separate scope, separate discussion. Because this feels, we discussed this, I forget if it was 2 weeks ago or 3, but it did come up in a Gamma meeting and we discussed it. And it makes sense to me. I haven't given an explicit approval, but I should probably go do that. Basically, it looks like it lowers the initial implementation burden for users of Gamma. But in actuality, as soon as you want to do anything with it, other than just like have a stub resource there, you end up needing to add additional boilerplate anyway. So it really doesn't save you anything. So this makes sense to me and seems like it closes some gaps where we're inconsistent with other parts of the spec. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was me who was looking for port to be required. So I mean, agreed, we can just make a separate gap for that. It's not, I don't want to block this one.
Okay, then I think there's only one open part, Rob. You said we should like make it apply, I don't know, clarify the docs for gateway or something along those lines. So I can update that and should be pretty simple.
Yeah, I think my main goal here was instead of just removing something wholesale, like I think this PR just removes things from the gap, and I'd love to just capture some kind of,
Got it.
reference that we once had this and we don't, and here's why. I think that's the main thing.
Cool, makes sense.
Cool.
All right, well, seems like we have a pretty clear path forward on this, and yeah, we'll keep an eye out for a port discussion separately as we want to figure that out, because this seems like something we can move towards merging soon. All right. Are there any other topics? I have one general item at the end, but before we get to that, like, are there any other topics that we want to discuss during the meeting today? All right. Well, with that, I'll get to it. I want to announce that I'll be stepping down as a co-lead of Gamma. Sad to go, but it's definitely kind of bittersweet. I've really appreciated working with everyone over the past year to kind of like bring this project from an idea to an actual implementable thing that's coming in a few weeks. So really excited to kind of like see everything we've been able to put together. And yeah, I'll be focused internally more on actually implementing Gamma, which will be a bit of a nice change. So yeah, Gamma is very much still something that council intends to implement. That is not changing. My role is just going to be shifting a bit, and we've had some prerequisite work, and hopefully that should be wrapping up soon. So we'll actually be able to start implementing some of this, and so hopefully it may be me, it may be other folks still being able to like chime in upstream as we kind of explore and hit issues or successes. So yeah, I'll be sending out an email later today, kind of announcing this, but definitely just want to reiterate appreciation for all the folks who have like helped make this project successful. So thank you everyone who's on this call, and also folks who are watching, you know who you are. And yeah, I think the project's in good hands, and I'm excited to see it continue to grow and continue to run beyond our initial scope of routing to start touching things like velocity, egress, etc. So I think there's a bright future for it. And yeah, I'll get off my soapbox now, but just thank you, everyone.
I want to make sure everybody here understands, just how pivotal Mike has been. When back when Mike and I were working on SMI, he suggested looking at the Gateway API and seeing what's going on there, and that's a integral part of how Gamma was born, and we wouldn't be here if it weren't for Mike. So on behalf of everybody using Gamma and working with it, thank you for the work that you've contributed. Sorry to see you kind of step away and have your role change, but we are better for having had your contributions. So much thanks.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, also just huge thanks to Mike. Yeah, you've been awesome help to the community, and I'm so glad that Gamma exists. And I know you were instrumental in that, and you've pushed it forward and helped us get to where we are. And so just thanks for being a great influence on the community. And even though you'll be less involved in OSS, I'm sure we'll still see you around. So
I should still be around then. Yeah, feel free to say hi.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. That'll wrap it up for our meeting today. I will probably not be hosting the next one of these, but yeah, stay tuned for an email like announcing this formally. And yeah, thank you all so much. Take care and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.